Hi there, welcome to iTWireTV. Today we're speaking with Simon Cohen, the founder of Cohesis. Thank you so much for your time, Simon. Nice to meet you.
Thank you, David. Yes, thank you for inviting me on.
Yeah, so I'm really interested. Cohesis says, I understand your company says it helps businesses make the right technology decisions. And I guess I'm keen to understand, what do we mean by that? And in fact, what are some of the wrong decisions that people are making? What's the Cohesis edge, the Cohesis secret sauce here in making the right decisions?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it's a really interesting kind of question. I mean, in my view, it's around making the decisions fit the business. So what I'm talking about here is that the decisions are that leaders take are pragmatic, that they're in context of the business, and that can be in terms of budget, it can be in terms of their culture, it can be just in terms of where they're at. We sometimes talk to businesses that are in that want to rebuild, that have had some kind of shock or disturbance. Other businesses have had years of success and growth, and all of a sudden they've outgrown, so they have a different perspective. And they need technology to work for them to, they've outgrown their technology. So it's about adapting and actually looking at things through their eyes, but they don't necessarily have the technology expertise to actually kind of like look behind the jargon and interpret it, and also have the time as well to actually sit down and really think around what are the right next steps. So we come in and we kind of sit with them, we try and understand them, we understand, where they're up to in their technology journey, what maybe the issues are, what risks they've got, and they can be around their people, their processes, their technologies, but also their governance. We look at risk, we look at those kind of things, and what we try and do is build a picture. And it's a bit like a jigsaw of all these bits that have to fit together. And what we try and do is show them what that picture looks like now and what that picture could look like based on what they've told us what they want to achieve. And so in that context, we then have discussions, we have conversations, we don't tell them what they should do, we give them options, and then we talk them through, and then they feel as though they're making the right technology decisions. It's not us, but they're given the right basis upon which to make those choices. And so I suppose that covers that piece off. I would say, when you ask about the wrong decisions, these are more, I suppose, abstract in the sense of, yes, you can have a specific decision that's wrong, but they tend to be more strategically wrong decisions in the sense of short-termism, in the sense of maybe not, seeing IT as a cost, as a pure cost, not as an asset. And so therefore it's a case of we don't want to spend much on IT, and they don't look at the value that technology or applications or whatever it may be may provide. So it's around, the thinking around some of those decisions. And typically when we get invited into an organization, we're talking to the business leaders who typically, not all the case, but typically are sales-led or finance-led. And they may not have that technology background. So they're not used to looking at technology in that way as an asset, as something that needs to be invested in that supports the business. And so we help shape some of that thinking. To really kind of help drive that appreciation for the business value that they may not have had before. So it's around helping them see technology differently, helping them not to avoid making decisions, because sometimes the wrong decision is actually avoid making a decision. It's in the too hard box. Yeah, so we'll kick the can down the road. The problem with that is that as the business grows, if you're using legacy systems, the divergence between the capability of the organization and the technology beneath it can diverge, and that creates risk.
Yeah, no, that's fascinating. I appreciate that. And so I guess just to understand a bit better, is Cohesis a one-stop shop? So as well as helping customers design technology, evaluate them, are you able to assist them in implementing them? Or if you use partners, do you advocate for the customer and help them ensure that, they're keeping those partners honest? I guess, how do you work?
Yeah, no, again, another great question. So I'd like to think of us as, in some ways, a one-stop shop for digital strategy, technology roadmaps, and what have you. What we typically do is organizations engage us when they have a problem that they just can't solve. It's a bit of a knot, and they don't know how to untie the knot. So the first instance is that, you know, it's coming up with, like what I said before, is that initial plan, understanding the business, coming up with a strategy for getting them to where they want to be, and then absolutely we implement. And it's really helpful if we do that initial piece of work first, and we can kind of show that we've understood the business. We look at a roadmap. As I said before, we will have had those conversations with the business, so we're on the same page and aligned. That then enables them to say, well, we're not interested in this, we want to do that and this and the other. So we have a plan, we have a roadmap, and then we implement them, and we're all on the same page. Now, in terms of us being a one-stop shop, we focus very much on the application layer. We focus on risk management, we focus on governance, and how they affect an organization from a technology perspective. Where organizations need to join applications together or to move data around, we have people who will do that. Other parts of a digital strategy or understanding the technology footprint of an organization include things like cybersecurity, pen testing, and what have you. We don't do those kind of things. We don't do infrastructure. We don't compete with managed IT support organizations. You know, they're specialists in terms of what they do. We're specialists in terms of what we do. But we do work with those organizations. So, for instance, if we go into an organization and think, you know, we really need to do a vulnerability assessment on your network, then we'll pull in a specialist to actually perform that vulnerability assessment. Same with a pen test. If an organization really needs to replace their phone system or redo their networking or what have you, again, that's another organization, but we'll work with our clients to find the right vendors. We'll go through that tender process or quoting process, or we'll recommend a couple in, and then they can choose which ones they want to work with. And then we'll specifically manage that relationship on behalf of the client, should the client wish us to, you know what I mean? But it can come under the Cohesis management umbrella, but it wouldn't necessarily be us doing that. And similarly, organizations will come to us and say, look, we're just not happy with our managed service support for whatever reason. We want to try and change. We want to test the market, but don't know how to do that. We will, and it doesn't have to be managed IT support. It could be any kind of technology vendor. We will, we have a process that we help our clients kind of navigate, so they feel as though they're going through a formal process, you know, in your words, to keep everything honest, you know what I mean? So yes, that's it, exactly what we do. But from a strategic perspective, from working with the business and working with, at senior management level and board level, we tend to be the partner to those groups. And once we understand the business, we're in an excellent place to help them implement whatever the agreed recommendations are.
Yeah, brilliant. No, I appreciate that. I noticed as well that, and I guess you've probably already touched on this, I noted Cohesis offers a vCIO, a virtual CIO service, and I'm interested to understand, I guess, what that means to you. I have to be honest, I'm a bit jaded sometimes, because you see the term used by, let's say, some MSPs, and really what they mean by virtual CIO is, the salesman, whereas I tend to think of a CIO as, aligning technical direction with business strategy. And from what you've talked about, that sounds like what you're doing, I guess. Well, yeah, but I guess I'm just keen to understand from you, when you talk about a virtual CIO, what does that mean to Cohesis?
Yeah, so our vCIO services is pretty much, I suppose, a way for organizations to engage with us, for us to deliver those digital strategies and to design and then implement them. The vCIO is really a retained service that enables us to build relationships with our partners, basically, because we see our clients as partners. Yes, they engage us to provide a service, but we can't provide that service in isolation without the support and the backing of our clients. And it needs to be that kind of partnership relationship. So we very much see that as the CIO, as you've said, it's a strategic service. It's to work alongside the business to help the business get the most out of its technology, to make those right decisions, coming back to that, on a level that supports the business goals over the medium long term. If an organization comes to us and says, can we have an audit? We kicked an audit off yesterday with an engineering company in Perth, and we'll look at their systems, we'll look at the business and help them understand, what they need to do to shore up from a governance perspective. If that highlights particular elements, we'll work with them to implement the recommendations, and they may want to do that as an individual project because they'll see that, yeah, we want to implement that, and then Cohesis, thank you very much, but we'll be good from there. Other organizations may want to say, look, you know what, we want to really work with someone over the longer term and build that relationship. Can we do that? So this is that ongoing basis. And in terms of seeing the term VCIO banded around a lot, yes, it does make me wince sometimes when I see this, and pretty much all managed service providers will say that they provide a VCIO service. And I suppose when I look at those types of services, they're looking at it from their own perspective. And as you said, from a sales perspective, we often, and this is some of the wrong decisions that organizations make, because they think that MSPs are able to act strategically, and some kind of, I know I'm talking in a blanket way, and I suppose I shouldn't really, because we work with some very, very good MSPs and they do think strategically, but there's a lot that use that kind of strategy term as a way of sales. And I talk to some companies that say, look, I don't want to talk to my MSP anymore, because every time I talk to them, they're just going to cost me money. and sometimes there's the golden nugget in there that is the thing that the MSP suggests that they really should do, and then they don't, because they switch off because there's been so much cost that's gone through the business and they don't see the value for that cost. But for VCIOs that are born out of managed services, it will be typically around infrastructure, telephony, networking, and those kind of things that we don't touch. When we look at VCIO, we're looking at it really strategically and holistically, more from the application layer, more from, yes, okay, we'll talk cloud, we'll talk on-prem, but it's more around for us, it's because a lot of organizations are moving to cloud typically, some are coming back, but the infrastructure's not necessarily, in some ways, the key thing for our clients who are SMEs. They want their applications to be on the cloud, their SaaS solutions. What they want is the right applications to drive the business, and how are people going to use them? They're the questions that we typically have to answer. So from that perspective, we operate on risk, we operate on compliance, we operate on governance, we operate on applications and how those applications will work. So we do operate in a slightly different space, but it's also, we look holistically across the infrastructure piece as well, but from more of a distance, and then we'll pull in and work with trusted MSPs as and where we need to really get the details if they are relevant to what's needed for the client. So that's how it kind of differs, really. I trust that makes sense.
That does. No, in fact, that's wonderful. I'm sold. If having a partner who you can trust, who's going to be working in the interest of your business, who's operating strategically, who understands the goals the company's trying to achieve, these are wonderful things. So, yeah, I'm sold, I guess. But if I was a customer and I was interested in Cohesis, is there a particular size or maybe industry? I guess, what's the ideal Cohesis customer? And by contrast, are there customers who are too small or too large? Can anyone talk to you?
Well, look, we're always happy to talk to anyone. I suppose we wouldn't necessarily turn people away. I mean, typically, we do have a broad range of customers. So a large part of our strategic work is done in local government. We work with a number of what I would say tier 1 cities over here in WA. We also work with I actually enjoy working with a lot of the smaller local governments, some of the shires as well, that really need assistance as well. So we do a lot of work in local government. We also do work for not-for-profits. We're currently engaged with an organisation which is a very well-known tourist attraction down in Busselton. So we're helping them with their strategic direction. But we also do a lot of work with enterprises as well. And typically, we tend to do most of our work with SMEs that don't necessarily have a CIO or who don't really need or want one or can't afford one, but they want that strategic advice. And in terms of industrial sectors, we typically work with people in the professional services sector and people in manufacturing, inventory areas, because typically, at the very, very superficial level, professional service organizations and leads will come in. It'll be through a website or word of mouth. It will go into a CRM. They'll then have projects of one way, shape or form. They'll sell time. That time then needs to be invoiced, and you have a flow through of systems. And we help organizations find the right ecosystem for them. Typically, they want to move to the cloud. They want to use SaaS solutions, and it's around joining the data together and how that data flows and underpins their business process. And yes, you've got things like document management, collaboration. You've got all those other things that go around the edge. We help put that together. For manufacturers, it's a similar kind of thing. They will have a job that they'll have a sale that comes in, that then will translate into something that they have to make or do or store. And so it will come through maybe a CRM that goes into some form of manufacturing system and planning system that then comes out that needs to be invoiced. So it's from order to cash every which way that we'll look at those ecosystems and other things that may track in, like it could be timesheets, it could be other kind of delivery solutions and what have you, for vans that are delivering and what have you. And there's a whole host, but at a very broad stroke, it's those kind of SMEs that need some help, either moving away from legacy systems, moving away from spreadsheets, moving to the cloud, that want to have that flow through and putting the right strategy in place. For others, it's just a case of they've grown big, they've outgrown their solutions, they're in a bit of a knot, they don't have the right knowledge or they don't have the time to really kind of figure it out. They don't have the right people in the organization, and they need someone to come in who's trusted, who they can get on with and help them work through this problem and then find a pathway forward. So it can be anyone, but typically that there are our kind of customers, really.
Yeah, awesome. No, that's exciting. You mentioned a couple of examples of customers, and I guess I'm interested to know, do you have any stories that you're able to share of where Cohesis, had a project that really made a difference in the life of your customers?
Yeah. I'm pleased to say that we have a couple of examples. One of the ones that I really like to kind of talk about is it's a pet food manufacturing company. We've been working with them for 3 years. They're actually a group of they're actually a group. So one of their entities actually manufactures pet food. The other ones kind of distribute and kind of have a wholesaling arm as well. And so we started, and our initial engagement with them was to migrate 5 years worth of legacy finance data from their legacy system into Xero, as it was. And that was quite an undertaking because we were just given a database. And it was a bit of a challenge, but we managed to work out the structure and how the data fit together. And we actually migrated that data into Xero, and it went really, really well. We did year by year, from the furthest year back forward. We then did the software selection piece with them, and we helped them select the right MRP tool for them. We implemented that. We got them online with that. We then went through and we've implemented a CRM for them as well, and then joined the dots together, and they had that flow through that I was talking about. Then they really liked what we did with one company, with one of their entities, so they brought us back to work on the second one, and we've done finance migrations. We've moved we've moved the whole group over onto Xero. We've actually implemented MRP easy as it was multiple times, and we've actually worked on their third organization as well. And so the whole group has actually now transformed, and we actually ended the engagement, or it's kind of rolled out, and so we're kind of done, and it's all been successful, and that's the result of a long-term relationship over 3 years where we've gone at their pace in terms of what they've wanted to do. They've managed to change in a way that's right for them. And I'm really proud of my team who have managed the implementation from start to finish. We've got some great people, and they've built relationships, and we're almost sorry that the project's ended, because the relationships that have built up have been really really strong. And but it's a sign of success that we're able to kind of part in that way. And I dare say, as and when things evolve, I'm sure we'll be brought back in as and when.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
And another couple of examples, I suppose I'd give in terms of local government. As I say, we do a lot of work in local government. We helped we wrote the digital strategy for a local government in the metropolis here, in the metro area, over here in Perth. And that, even though it didn't really touch anyone individually per se, it actually sets the tone for what's going to roll out in that organization and in the community. So it has wide ramifications for what will happen. And for instance, as an example, on the back of this, they are upgrading and migrating their ERP solution. And there's things in around really kind of modernizing and all, bringing in digitization and automation. So to be a part of that, it's not just me, but to be a part of that is actually really interesting. And then there's similar other things that are going on in smaller shires where the technology needs are very different. We also have a suite of power applications that we've developed, and we've started rolling these out that solve particular issues in smaller local governments. And to see the impact that they are about to have as we roll these out is really exciting as well. And that will change the way that small local governments will operate, and it will actually have a direct impact on their communities. I suppose the last one would be an organization which is, I suppose, a data science organization, does data analytics. And they were on legacy systems and multiple different legacy systems. They had 3 or 4 different systems that had customers and for instance. And so we've put in place a whole new way of managing projects for them by implementing and migrating to a SaaS project management tool, which also is their CRM as well. So, and whilst that doesn't sound too groundbreaking, from where they were and working on spreadsheets and what have you, working from a spreadsheet that everybody has to update or from a printout to having a system that everyone can just look at because it's updated naturally because you changed the business process to make that happen. The nature of those meetings are just so different, that they're actually so much more collaborative. You get so much more out of your time, which is very easy for me to say and what have you. But when you actually see it happening and you see that transformation, is actually really, it really positively impacts people's working lives, which is nice to see. So there's 3 for you at least, anyway.
Yeah, they're wonderful stories. And no, I agree with you. Sometimes as technical folk, it's easy for us to say, I just did this thing and it's, technically easy. But you're right, the transformation that you have on the company and the culture and the way they work, and enabling them to spend, instead of spending all their time just trying to work out where they've been, to now suddenly being able to focus on the future levers. They're exciting. They're wonderful things you've talked about. So yeah, I'm sold. I guess if any of our listeners wanted to reach out to Cohesis, what would be the best way they could do that?
Anyone's very welcome to reach out to me by email, which is simon.cohen@cohesis.com.au. Very happy for people to reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm very easy to find on LinkedIn. I think my handle is Simon Cohen 1, so I think people can find me there. And typically you can go to the website if you want to find out some more about what we do and how we do it, which is www.cohesis.com.au. So yeah, please feel free to get in touch that way, and you can actually make appointments if you want to reach out and have a chat.
Yeah, it's wonderful. No, I've enjoyed that a lot, Simon. I've been delighted learning more about Cohesis, and the examples you've given, the things you've talked about are wonderful. It's great to see companies, of all types can have a trusted partner who, will focus on what's best for the company and helping them move forward. That's wonderful.
Oh, well, thank you ever so much, David. Thanks ever so much for your kind words.
No, well, thank you for telling us. So that's been Simon Cohen, founder of Cohesis. Thank you so much, Simon. You take care.
Thank you. Same to you, David. Bye for now.